All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today, June. June. It's a good way to start. I wish it were June. October 19th, 2021, Town of Newcastle work session, where, among other things, we'll be discussing the budget later on, but some issues to deal with in advance. If I can get a motion to start our work session, please.
I move to start the work session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, take it away, Jill.
Okay, Kent, we're going to start with Kent Thomas from the Sustainability Advisory Board, who's going to introduce Sustainable Westchester's new program that we're hoping to bring to Newcastle. Kent, can you give us an introduction?
Great. Thank you. Certainly. Thank you. I'd like to thank the board and everyone else involved for taking the time to learn about this product. And I'd like to thank Nia for giving the demonstration and Lori for her participation in reviewing the product prior to this. I'm sorry that Jennifer Meeb's flag couldn't be with us tonight. I consider her a mentor, and it's unfortunate that she couldn't be. But she has been very involved in reviewing and coordinating this initiative. I will try and be brief because you really want to listen to Neha and not to me. But what we're here about is a product that Sustainable Westchester is calling Recycle Right. The vendor actually is Recollect, and that's the brand name of their product. But many municipalities have changed the name to suit what they like. Sustainable Westchester was offered it to all of its member municipalities starting in 2018, and they now have 16 municipalities on board. And within Westchester, there's 2 other municipalities that contract directly with the vendor. The SAB identified this opportunity earlier this year, and we've been working with Neha since June on it. And Neha was kind enough to give a demo to Lori, Michael, and myself 2 weeks ago. The product includes various software modules, 3 of which are offered by Sustainable Westchester. That's what we'll be addressing tonight. The first 2 are integrated into the town website, but one of the big benefits is the repository of definitions is external to the town website. So whenever anything changes, there's no coding required, just update of the definitions. The first module is a calendar, which lists collection dates and can also have special events such as paper shredding or household cleanup days listed there. And it gives notifications if residents wish as to when these events are occurring. The second one is Waste Wizard, which many municipalities have branded as a Recyclopedia, where you can just enter the name of an item that you want to find out how you can dispose of it, and it will return a page which will list hopefully eventually all the possibilities that could be done, whether it should be curbside, whether it can take the recycling center, go to the household material recycling facility, or even external non-governmental agencies. So then the third part is a mobile app, which has all the full functionality of the web calendar and Recyclopedia. I'm going to leave the benefits to Neha, but just to touch on the potential implementation. If the town did adopt this product, the SAB is committed to supporting both DPW and Sustainable Westchester in customization, implementation, education, and ongoing maintenance of the product. A potential schedule would be the calendar year for subscribing to this product runs November through October. Okay, so possible would be definitions and customization in November and December, mid-December ready for implementation, initially with Recyclopedia or Waste Wizard, whichever one you call it, having simple yet accurate definitions. And I see it as an iterative process to try and develop more robust definitions and list more possible avenues for people to dispose of products and not have it go into the waste stream. And then I would see a small group test. Then implementation could be beginning of 2022. And it would be an opportune time also, because we could put the information either on or as an insert with the refuse calendar when that goes out at the end of the year. And so January 2022, possibly a resident rollout, and there would have to be an outreach from the town and the SAB, newsletter, Facebook, electronic sign, all those kinds of things. And then it does have a lot of analysis functions in it, which we could take advantage of to also customize. If there's something that somebody's searching for that's not there, it will tell us that, so we can add those to 200 plus items that Sustainable Westchester already has defined. And then if we get to the cost from Sustainable Westchester is $4,500. Nia will get into this, I'm sure, but it's kind of like a BOGO, a buy one, get one free, because there's a 50% grant available through DEC, which Sustainable Westchester would handle applying for and refunding the money to us when the grant comes through. But if you work it out, if we say we have 5,600 service addresses for refuse in the town, at the reduced price, the 50% reduced price, it works out to 40 cents per address per year. So it's really a pretty affordable, economical product. Nia, I'll also tell you a resolution will have to be done by October 29th in order to qualify.
Before. Much
Okay.
before,
Oh,
because we hope to send it, the application is due on October 29th. So we hope to get all the materials ready at least a day before then.
okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, well, with that, I'd like to introduce Neha, who's the program
Sorry to
director
jump
of
in.
Zero Waste Westchester at Sustainable Westchester. Neha?
Thank you again. And I'm sorry to interrupt your full speech, but I had to really press upon the deadline there. And Kent, again, I am so thankful that you are such a great champion for this program. You have touched on all the different aspects of how to, come on board and what will happen as next steps, what the technology offers, what Sustainable Westchester offers, and all the economic benefit. So I'm thankful that you covered all of that in such a elegant way. I'm happy to go over the actual demonstration of the tool itself to show you, what could possibly change from your current, way of communication versus this new technological, way of communicating information around waste and recycling. So just to start with an example, I would like to share my screen if that's okay, and walk you through the sanitation brochure of a town here in Westchester. This town's brochure or calendar that goes out every year to their residents looks like this. There is 2 zones for pickup, Monday and Tuesday. And then there is paper and commingled. There are some bulk route, distinctions made. And then there is information about organic yard and Christmas. So if I were a new resident, say, and first of all, I will not know whether I'm a Monday pickup or a Tuesday pickup. Maybe I will look at my neighbors and what they, put out at the curb every day, and I'll follow the queue. But if I want to set up a system in my household and, get that, set up nicely, I will call in at this number and ask, hey, am I Tuesday or Wednesday or Monday? Once that is clear to me, then I will also have to confirm whether I am a bulk route 1, 2, or 3, and plan my bulk curbside pickup accordingly. And then I will also have to set a reminder for myself to put out organic yard waste on these days. Like, they are scattered across the year. They don't follow a specific pattern. So I will have to definitely, do an extra step of setting up those days in my calendar. And so on and so forth. So as you can see, it starts as a simple information, but it just becomes somewhat complicated. And then if we are also asking our residents to recycle more, to send less to the incinerators and landfills, then I think it's really important for us to provide that information to them in a easiest to understand way possible. And keeping all this in mind, we came up with a technology solution that makes it easy for municipalities to communicate all of this information in a very streamlined way. And then for the residents to be able to access information at their fingertips, literally. So now that this town has joined the Recycle Right program, as a resident, this is what I will experience. I will go to the town website, And here I will enter my address. I'll just pick a random address and hope that, let's say this is Montrose. So I'll pick this address for now because I know this is in the town of Cortland. And here I will see exactly what sanitation schedule applies to me. So I will see that, let me minimize my screen. I will see that I am a Tuesday, and there is an e-waste information available to me, which was not easily, clear to me in this page, right? So now I'm able to see that, hey, I can book my e-waste pickup on Mondays and Tuesdays. And then I see my paper and cardboard. I also see when is my metal pickup, and I don't see anything else, that confuses me. I just see that for my address, I have metal pickup on 22nd, bulk pickup on this date, and yard waste also clearly, specified. So what I can do now is add this to my Google Cal or iCal, or print it if I really want a printed calendar. I will be able to print it, and that takes me to this page, which shows me what address this sanitation schedule applies to, other information around, who can I contact if I have any further questions, any other pertinent information. And then it just gives me the sanitation calendar that's for my household. So this in itself will remind an average resident that, if I know when my recycling is, I'm more likely to put things in the right recycling bin and take that extra effort to recycle more than if I'm just overwhelmed and I find the sanitation schedules to be so confusing that I just pick one day for my trash day and put everything in my trash bin and be done with it, right? So if you see what I'm saying, you will see that having that constant reminder that tomorrow is a paper pickup or Friday is a commingled allows me to plan and systemize, in my household that the town picks up paper on so-and-so day, picks up commingled on so-and-so day. So we can perhaps start, segregating that. We can start, making a system of having a paper bin, a recycling bin, and so on and so forth. And then beyond that, like Kent said, the recyclopedia function is so powerful because in a brochure, as you can imagine, we can only cover so much information, like the commonly asked questions. But what if somebody has a question about some odd item like lumber wood or styrofoam, or these odd things that confuse people, but they have those lying around in the household, and some also would like to know if they can do anything better with the items such as e-waste. For those kinds of very detailed information, the Recyclopedia is a perfect tool because you can add as much information as you would like for the residents to see. So I'll quickly click on e-waste to show you that what I see as a resident of Cortland. And by the way, this still remembers my address, so I don't have to type it again. And I will see that the Cortland e-waste recycling includes so-and-so, does not include so-and-so. And there is a fee if I drop off. There's a fee if I don't drop off. There is a fee if I request curbside. And then it can also be brought to other places. And it shows me the directions even to that place. If nothing else, if nothing so far is of interest, then I will also be able to see other options for me, such as donations. And then it also shows me that, hey, there's an app that lets me even sell it or give it away for free. And in the case of town of Newcastle, I would love to be able to also add information about the take it or leave it shed. so that people are just constantly reminded of that great option that's available to them. So all in all, like I'm trying to show you that, having a technology allows us to really go into the depths of, how much ever information you want your residents to see. And then thinking that, and then, having that that confidence that you have provided as much information to your residents, then you can start, nudging them towards a more proactive recycling behavior using all the different tools. So the first step definitely is making the information easily accessible to them. I really quickly want to also show you that this widget that we are seeing here, this green rectangle, can be translated into several different languages. And when I click any other language, I will see everything translated into that language. And whatever I'm showing you here is all included in that annual fee that Kent mentioned earlier. So with that, I will stop talking for now, and I will want to hear from you as to, what else would you like to know about this program?
I think just as a preliminary matter, this recycle right piece of it in terms of knowing what you can recycle and what you can't recycle is so helpful, because that is an issue that we've been dealing with. I know I personally have dealt with it. To me, that in and of itself is really what this is about, at least personally, but I can't speak in terms of how you've had success as opposed to the calendar, because we've had issues where people have put all sorts of things in recycling that simply can't be recycled. So, it's used. Who updates this if things change in terms of what can be recycled, and who's in control of that?
Yes. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and this is like a team effort. What I typically like to tell municipalities is that they can take care of the core essential functionalities such as calendars and notifications around cancellations, etc. For the recycling piece, I like to help every municipality update their recycling instructions, because if you will see in the dashboard, you will see that, again, it's such a huge list of items, and then there are so many options of how you can customize it endlessly. So I like to just help out municipal staff in taking information from them and updating it for them into the dashboard, so that staff doesn't have to rack their brains around how to do it in the dashboard, if that makes sense.
And for clarity, is it also going to help? It's not just for what gets dumped recyclable in town, but also what you can do with your particular collector here, SaniPro, or whomever your garbage collector is? So
can you repeat that question?
It directs you what you can do in town and what your town will take, your municipality will take, in addition to what you could do curbside?
Correct, yes. So I would like to give an example of town of Ossining. They also work with a private carter who services that area. And yes, so they have a highway department that accepts certain things at their yard, and then they have the service provider who takes certain items at curbside. So yes, we are able to customize it exactly as they want it to be.
So to add to that, Jeremy, I mean, it's fully customizable. So even if you wanted to get down to the level of having a map of the recycling center with something like X marks the spot as far as where you need to take it, when you get there, you could go to that level even.
Thank you.
Correct.
Can I just ask a question about the $4,500 fee and the 50% reimbursement? Is that going to be an annual fee, or is that a one-time setup and we're done with it?
That was
It's an
my
annual fee.
question.
I'm sorry?
That's an annual fee.
That's an annual fee. And is
Yes.
the, how long does the reimbursement run for?
So we apply for this recycling grant every year. It's an annual application. And
Okay.
so far we have received it for the past 3 years, consecutive years. We hope that it will continue. But yes, there's always that what if.
Right after you, we're going right into budget, so.
So there's no guarantee we'll receive that reimbursement. So we should assume we're paying about $4,500 a year. And if we get reimbursed, then we're lucky.
Yes.
And is there an additional setup fee?
No, there is no initial setup fee. It's all a flat rate.
So it's a really interesting concept for a town like ours, though, where we have single stream recycling and our garbage and recycling are picked up on the same day and it's once a week. It's not quite as complicated as, you know, the example you showed where organic waste is one day and certain recycling's one day and bulk's one day. It's all the same day. So if you know your garbage is getting picked up on Tuesday, everything's getting picked up on Tuesday. You don't really need a calendar for it. So I think eventually if we go toward, you know, curbside compost pickup and things like that, it would be more helpful. It's a really great concept. I'm not 100% sure how necessary it is for our community right now. That's just me totally being honest here.
Okay, may I speak to that, Lisa?
Sure.
Well, first, we have dual stream recycling because we have to separate paper and cardboard
Right.
from the
You're
other
right.
stuff. But it's not just for what gets picked up curbside or what SaniPro would handle. It's for things like paint cans or coffee cans or all kinds of things that there's a lot of confusion out there. Milk cartons, egg cartons, that there's really confusion as to whether it's recyclable or it's not. Okay, so that part of it would reduce the amount of call volume coming into the recycling center to try and figure out what to do. Now, as far as the schedule, yes, you know, people can have their calendar, or they could have already put it into their Google Calendar, or however they handle it nowadays. But this also does provide notifications of when those pickups are going to occur. And like I said earlier, you can add things that are not part of the normal schedule, such as the shredding days and the household recycling days that the county runs and things like that. The other part of the notifications is there's exception notifications. So DPW would have the ability to send out a notification if there was a service interruption for something like inclement weather. So it provides that function also. And I know that I'm sorry?
And that can be refined to a neighborhood. So if there was a neighborhood that had a disruption of service, there could be a notification.
Right.
So it doesn't have to go out. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I saw on Facebook, you know, for Columbus Day, some people were unsure of whether there was a yard waste pickup. And one of the reasons is there's only one color that can be put onto the physical calendar. So it had yellow saying the recycling center was closed, but people were unsure if that meant whether it was yard waste or wasn't yard waste. But this would list every occurrence of collection that by day.
Mm-hmm. And do we know how many phone calls our recycling center gets on average?
I don't know that. I know that when Michael took the demo, the paint cans was number one. That was the one he got the most about.
There's also just value, you know, how many people probably recycle pizza boxes, which I understand you can't because of the grease. How many people don't know what to do with tin foil or tin things? I mean, to me, it sounds like an incredible asset, and it's a nominal cost. It seems fabulous to me.
I agree, Jeremy. I think the quality of what goes into our recycling right now and having fewer recycling bins corrupted by material that shouldn't be in there. I think this creates a clearer communication tool for the public to understand that, as well as what are regional resources to recycle things that aren't picked up at the curb, that aren't part of our you know, our truck pickup or even at our recycling center, right? But you could take advantage of elsewhere in the county if it mattered to you. If you thought it was worth your time, you'd have that information and resource. So I think that the complexity of this topic to aggregate the same information another way is incredibly resource intensive. So in that sense, I think that it's a great value.
One other thing.
Will need to sign up. Do you lock into like a 5-year or is it like an annual? Apologize if I missed that early on.
So currently we have a 3-year term, yes, requirement.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
But I will say that the way we have set up our agreement with Recollect, the technology provider, our term ends in 2023, which means we will renew then. And so for town of Newcastle, the term would go up to that period, 2023 October. And then everybody, if still wants to be in the program, then they will be renewed at the same time.
So a somewhat hidden benefit is also that whatever we get out of the waste stream, the more we get out, the less we're going to pay in tipping fees. So you are earning some money back, so to speak, that way.
So to add to the discussion prior about phone calls coming in and the staff handling those odd questions sometimes, what I've also heard as feedback from the municipalities that are in this program is how it helps the staff answer the questions more efficiently. So if someone calls in and there is a question about, let's say, LED lights or paint cans, for instance, maybe the staff knows the answer off the top of their head, maybe they don't. Then they, look up different brochures or PDFs, and they kind of, try to tell them the right answer. In this case, the municipal staff has told me now the first thing they do is open this page on their website. And as people call in, they simply enter their address for them, they enter the query and spit out the answer that the Recyclopedia provides. So that's definitely a time saver for them. Instead of spending 10 minutes, they spend 2 minutes on the call maybe.
Let me jump in here only for the sake of time, because we have a budget and we're already sort of running late to some people who are scheduled. I just speaking for myself, I think it's a fabulous idea. I support it, but I think we can certainly ask more questions offline. And I just, for sort of a straw vote, if we should put this on for the agenda next week so that we can consider resolution to try to make sure we can get that grant monies. So if anyone opposes that as opposed to who supports it, maybe you should say so now, but otherwise I think we should just put this over to next week. And we
Let me
can
just
Just
discuss.
one more question,
Yeah.
Jeremy. Is there going to be any visibility as to how often it's used, like the analytics of the website? Because that's what I mean. I think it's an excellent tool, and it certainly has the data that's important. But I also want to make sure that residents use it, and so seeing just kind of a snapshot of how often people are using the website, how much, like the traffic data and all that good stuff, would just be really helpful, like whether it's a quarterly, monthly, et cetera type of thing, because, websites in general are very hungry beasts. And I certainly want to make sure that people are utilizing this tool in an efficient and effective manner.
I would say that
Yes.
there will be an adoption curve, getting this to people. I think once they have seen it and used it, they will probably continue to use it, but getting them to use it initially is going to be something that we really have to concentrate on. And then just for clarification, Neha, when would you need the resolution to be done or to be in your hands by in order to qualify?
So if we want to take advantage of the 50% grant, then it's best if I can have that confirmation at least a day prior to October 29th.
Okay, so we
But
would
I
put
don't
it
want to
on
wait too
for
long.
October 26th.
Yes.
That's that would be next week, and that would also give us an opportunity. Lisa has asked some questions about a number of questions from the recycling center. We don't have Mike Sicali here with us here tonight to be able to field any of those questions. We'll certainly get them. But Kent, I think more than knowing how many people right up front are using it, everybody understands, I think, that there's a learning curve and an adoption curve. But are there analytics built into this program that we can take and be able to see how much use it's getting? What areas are people using?
Yes. Yes, this tool was actually built by data nerds, if I can call them that. And I would love to show you the analytics that it generates if we have a few more minutes. Is that possible now? Okay.
Jeremy,
But yes,
it's
so
your call.
The short answer is,
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Can you print it out and provide it?
sorry, Ken.
Could you print it out and provide it via email?
The analytics?
Yes.
Sure. I mean, it's sometimes I hesitate because it is other towns' data that I will be
All right.
printing out. So I would rather show
Maybe-
it on.
So maybe we can, Jill, maybe Neha could just show you, offline in another time. I did see the demo for the analytics. I thought it was actually an incredibly powerful component
Okay.
of the
I-
tool. Because
yes, I
it
mean-
was demonstrating not only usage, but how people were using the tool, what were the questions they were asking, what were the kinds of things that they were trying to dispose of, so that we could also get a handle, right? If there was a service that we don't offer, that
Right.
perhaps we should, because the number of inquiries, it would help inform some of those choices.
I think
Exactly
Lauren and I
right.
would also like to see that, because I'm not, I'm a little hesitant about how much it's going to be used, but I think in concept, it's a really great idea. So if it's something that we can track for the first 2 years till 2023, and then we see people are really using it, then we move forward with it. If no one's really using it, then we, have an answer there too.
I have no issue with this. I think it's a fabulous idea. I think we should put this on for next week, and we can all flesh it out by then and ask more questions by then. You got to start somewhere, and it's going to grow, and people want to learn and recycle right. But I'm sort of rushing this along because we have people who are scheduled, and we don't want to lose them for a budget. And this is sort of a late add-on. So let's circle back next week. Does anyone have any objection to that? Otherwise, let's just put it over till then.
That's great.
Okay, so let's do that.
And thank you so much for your
finding-
time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate
you.
the opportunity. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Right. All right,
Sabrina,
Jill,
you still
thank
with
you.
us?
Oh, I'm in for
Okay.
the long haul. Don't you worry.
I know you are.
I sent
I know.
a message to Jill. Is Sabrina still here? Do we lose her?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay. Rob, you and Sabrina wanna kick it off?
Yeah, I'll just give just a 2-minute kind of intro on what's happening here tonight. And I know we have a couple of newer board members and maybe some of the public watching, and they might not be familiar with this step of the process. So what we have presented tonight is what's called the tentative budget. The board members have received Jill's budget message, and the budget should be posted, if not now, shortly. It was given to Carrie this afternoon, so I know she's been running back and forth between different meetings, and when she gets a chance, she'll put that up online. So the tentative version of the budget is what the department heads have presented to both Jill and I, and we've met with each of them individually. We've kind of fine-tuned everything, and it's what we kind of jointly present as the tentative budget. And the budget message is based off of this, based on the department head requests and what Jill and I believe are kind of, I guess, accurate projections for next year. That's when we fill in the revenue and in some cases fund balance and tax dollars that we need to offset the expenses. So that's what this stage is. Each department head is going to have an opportunity to speak to the board over the next day and a half or so and kind of go through their budget. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. They may not necessarily go through them line by line. Certainly, I'm available for questions throughout the process and over the next couple days. Typically, I catalog any questions or anything that we flag for possible changes, either if we want to add something to it or reduce a budget line. And then that would get reflected in the preliminary budget, which is the next version. And that should be to the board on November 10th. And that's the version that we set the public hearing. I give a presentation to the League of Women Voters and then also a public hearing in a work session. I think it's November 30th is that one. So that's where we are now. And we're going to start off with the development department and Sabrina.
Hello, everyone. Well, I'm going to get you rolling. So my department, the development department, is composed of 3 sections in the annual budget. It consists of the town engineers section, the zoning section, and the planning section. So when you look in the big book of the budget, you'll see the flow chart for my office, all the different circles representing positions in my office. There is one vacant position in the development department in accordance with the CSEA contract, and that's for the deputy town engineer. You know, we haven't filled that for a while. I have a summary sheet that I can put up, Rob, if you want me to. You tell me how you want to do this.
Well, this is your chance to talk to the board. So if you want to put your summary, I'll stop sharing and you can share.
Okay, let me do that.
All right.
I'm just going to share a summary sheet. Let's see. And so this summary sheet, it compares all the categories on the left in the left-hand column of all the different budget numbers and line items of the budget. It looks at the 2021 expenditures in those lines, and it lists the 2022 tentative requests. There's a column called difference 2021-2022, which shows how we compare to last year. The numbers in red are increases. The numbers in green are decreases. Overall, we are looking at an $18,088.88 difference between this year's budget and last year's budget. Historically, my budget has been very conservative in the sense that, you know, we count pencils, we count paper, you know, we don't ask for a lot of excess. The biggest difference this year, the 18,000 really falls in one of the top lines where you see a difference of 19,000. It's in big bold red. That is for a new part-time person. And this part-time person really stems from our experiences with COVID. One of the most helpful aspects of that kept my office running during COVID was the fact that we have many of our building permit records online. We had gone through several different scanning projects over the years where we took our earliest building permit records and scanned them in. We then conducted another large scanning project, I'm going to say it was circa 2012, where we put a majority of building permits up to 2014 into our system. This system is called Alchemy, is where we host all of our scanned records. Our information is so rich in that we are able to perform what is called a title search, where title companies come to us to search and ask us to search our records to investigate properties that are looking to be sold, refinanced, etc. So we have a wealth of information in our Alchemy system. The last set of plans in that system is 2014. So we are in 2021 right now, and anything that has occurred from 2014 to 2021 is not in the system. Recognizing that, you know, we are continually searching for monies to try and cover that bridge of 2014 to 2021, there's a recognition that we need to change the way our systems function, right? So we're looking for a part-time person to scan closed building permits into our system from today. You know, so that if the building inspector signs a building permit today, tomorrow that part-time person can pick up the file and scan the PDF in. That's what that part-time person is for, so that we can try and stop getting backlogged with, you know, 6 to 10 years worth of files and then having to do a big push of a project and try and keep ahead of it. So that's the biggest difference. We have other changes in the budget, the other red lines. A lot of that is due to inflation. And, you know, for example, the books and subscription, the $14.95, that's full access to the fire code subscription service. It was an online service last year. We didn't ask for the full package because we wanted to see what the difference between the online package was with the hardcover book package. We now know we need full access to that online subscription because they're not really printing the books anymore. So, all of this, there's nothing that is surprising in here. It's all routine business, except for that part-time position where we think we can fit on a part-time basis another person to scan records in. I don't know if there's any lines or any particular questions that any of you have for me. It's a very lean budget. There's not a lot of padding. We take stock in the fact that, one of our requirements is to print records in record books. We haven't needed to purchase minute books on a regular basis for a while because, quite frankly, our agendas aren't as long as they used to be when it comes to planning and zoning boards. But we still need to complete those processes, but we're not going through books like we used to. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking and ask if you have any questions.
So Sabrina, before any questions, I'll just explain a little bit more about the part-time personnel line too, because it's a big number there. So that number includes our fire inspector, who is a permanent part-time employee. It also includes our part-time building inspector, who has been working on Chappaqua Crossing. And was he not working on Conifer as well, Sabrina?
He was working on Conifer as well.
Okay, so that's what's in that line. So these are, vital employees to the town, and they're included in that budget line.
But Rob, if they're currently working for us, why is that number going up other than the part-time office assistant?
Right. It's only going up for the part-time office.
Just the part-time.
It's
Okay.
just the part-time office assistant. That's
So can't we hire an intern to do scanning? That's what I do. Like, why do we need to hire somebody to do that? Can't we just get an intern to do scanning?
That hasn't been our experience.
yeah.
We need to make sure that the records are accurately done.
Yeah, Joe, if you want to recall, when we did first digitize the records, the debacle that we had with that process, because unfortunately we went out to bid and we had to hire the lowest responsible
bidder.
And they actually lost files, taking them off property, and we actually had to do quality control on everything that we scanned in.
I just feel like we should look into, we've got incredibly smart kids at Greeley who would probably love to do this for, credit for college.
It seems to me, based on what you, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, go ahead.
No, it has not been our experience. We have tried to hire summer help over the summers to get interns in to do scanning, and we have not been successful.
Yeah, we've tried with interns that we have had to have them try and do the scanning, and it takes a little bit more, and it takes a little more consistency of being in the office, kind of watching the process happen. In addition, I think it's important for you guys to understand, we also changed our requirements for plan submissions. In the past, we've always asked for very large plans. Well, it's very expensive to scan in a very large piece of paper. So we are now asking for final versions of plans on 11 by 17 or 8.5 by 11, so that it's easier for us to digitize, to scan into through a copy machine or a desktop scanner rather than sending them out. Lori.
So does this function generate income for the town?
Yes, it does. This alchemy system, yes, it does. We charge, I want to say $130 for a title search. When somebody comes in and they want copies of things, we charge them per copy. We see an insane volume of requests for what we call property searches. It's not just from title searches, but anyone who is thinking about selling their home or actually selling their home, we recommend that they do a search to make sure that there are no open building permits, that nothing has been done without a building permit, and that everything is in order to make that process easier. And it is a dollar generating effort.
And are there other costs for this person? Like, are we paying pension? Are we paying health care? Nothing.
No, it's a part-time position. So it's 17 or less hours a week, or 17.5 less hour, that's the maximum hours that this person can work.
So what are they getting paid per hour? I'm too
Rob,
tired for
minimum
math
wage.
right now.
Yeah,
So,
wait a second. let me
14,
go.
$15 an hour, whatever.
We had
minimum
them
wage is.
down for, we had a pay rate of $20 factored
Oh,
into the
sorry.
budget.
$20 an hour?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen for just a second because Sabrina had, her chart was great and it covered a lot of lines. One thing it didn't cover was all of the salary lines, and there's a bid for that department. So I just want to clarify for everybody. So, and this will be the same way throughout the entire budget. At the moment, the salaries are calculated on current salaries for this year, and they're increasing any steps that employees are achieving throughout their contract. So we're currently out of contract with the CSEA, which means there's no cost of living increases being instituted, but what there are is step increases as employees go through. There are 5 steps in the CSEA contract. So any salary increases that you see are either anything that the town board approved in 2021 and anything that is slated to increase through step increases next year. There are currently no increases due to the contract. We have included some funds in the contingency in the event that that contract settles for next year, but they aren't currently included in the salary line.
I want to add that in my office, there are 11 employees, 9 of which are within the CSEA.
And
Or
what's this?
actually 8. We have 11 and a part-time, so that part-time person is not within the union.
Right.
And what's the 95% increase in overtime? Are we expecting a lot more overtime?
So that's over the budget from last year. We have already surpassed the revenue goal for 2021 we're in October and for building permits. So they have seen a huge increase in volume in that office. That overtime also covers things like our fire inspector and our building inspector when they have to come in after hours. That includes our town, it includes Terry, who assists Bob in the town engineer's office. Sabrina, does that also include your staff that attends board meetings, after hours board meetings that are
the contract requirement for any staff member who serves a board? There's, I want to say it's a 3-hour or 4-hour minimum. And many times that some of that overtime is actually not used and used as what we call compensatory time, where they choose hours over pay.
I'll point out a couple of these other lines. The internships, as you see, we've included $3,000. Sabrina has typically had 2 interns in her office. They have been doing some, I would say probably maybe higher level work than just scanning. She's had them help out with the with some of the GIS mapping. The other year they did the inflow and outflow of the water courses. They were mapping all those. So, we do take interns in the summer, and Sabrina has typically had 2 of them in her office.
Right. We did not have them over the past year due to the space issues in my office. And we just didn't have, with COVID, the ability to have the bodies in my office. But we're hoping that we can undertake projects next year. But as Rob said, most of our internships are project-based internships. It's not office clerical work that we look to have our interns do. We do bring them into that aspect of being in an office, but a lot of them do some higher level analysis that we just don't have the time to do as professionals.
I will also point out another line, the longevity pay. And again, this is something you'll see in every department. This is calculated based on the contract, and longevity pay begins once an employee's been with the town for 5 years, and there are different incremental increases at 5 years, at 10 years, at 15 years, and 20 years. So that's why you'll see that increasing. It's a contractual increase. It's nothing that we can do about that one.
Sabrina, quick question, kind of getting back to this scan issue. Is it possible to essentially require digital submission?
We do.
You do, okay.
Well, those are part of the changes that we made. However, a building permit, the actual permit and the final plans, there has to be a period of signing and filing with the county, and there is paper that goes back and forth, and we get a copy of it. And it's, it's hard to ask somebody to go back to their professional to get a scan of that document after they've been through the process and they're ready to start construction. So, we're almost there.
Okay, thank you. So you might anticipate, right, that this isn't a gap that would need to continue to get fulfilled in perpetuity.
Correct. No, I think we're looking at this gap to help us catch up and stay abreast until the time that we go to electronic application submission. And we are almost there, but not quite.
Thank you.
Yep. And that's a whole other budget discussion.
Yes.
Just 2 more lines that I want to point out to the board. If you recall, if you look down here to the bottom of the screen where we have town board consulting, master plan consulting, we have $50,000 in each of those lines. Those are if the board orders any studies, either related to implementation of the master plan goals or any other town board consulting. This could be for our sidewalk studies. Those types of things would be
For
included.
natural resources inventory,
Yep.
different projects that we look to obtain grant money for. And in the event we don't, we have monies that will help us achieve the goals that those programs were set up for.
Yeah, and I think in the current year expenditures and the master plan consulting, I think those are related to the rec master plan. Some of the stuff, I know that Kellen has purchased some trail counters and those types of things. And I think we paid Pace University also out of that, did we not, Sabrina?
Yes, we did.
So I just wanted to point those lines out to the board. Are there any other questions for Sabrina?
Terrific. Thank you, Sabrina.
Okay. If you think of anything, I'm available to answer questions anytime.
Thank you.
All right.
That's
Have a
great,
good
yeah.
night.
You too. Good luck with the
Bye-bye.
plans.
Sabrina.
Chief is up next. Hey, Chief.
Hey guys, how are you?
Steve,
So,
how you doing?
Hi, Steve.
good. I just should have mentioned, and once I finished with it, I sort of, don't think about it too much, but the budget message is actually a cheat sheet. It goes through for the board and highlights the significant changes in each department and the expenditures and the revenue lines that most significantly impact us from one year to the next. So if you have a chance, this is my one plug. If you have a chance to, take a look at it, go ahead. That's why, that's the purpose of its preparation.
Yeah, and as you'll find out through the night, there are a lot of these lines that are just very routine and they're the same thing year in and year out in office supplies and those types of things. So, rather than bog the board down and I don't know, there's hundreds of general ledger code lines in this, we try to highlight what would be of most interest and what had some of the larger variances over the prior years.
Okay, Chief, all you.
Chief, I can either share my screen, which is just my budget document, or if you want to share your screen, you're welcome to, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, why don't I share my Excel sheet, Rob?
Okay.
Rob,
sounds
what
good.
page is it in your budget document?
So
117.
we starts on page 117.
Thanks.
And again, just to point that out, sorry, I didn't have a big preface because I knew Sabrina needed to get out of here. But so for the versions of the budget, on the lower right-hand corner of the pages, I have them numbered. There are a total of 268 pages. So if you ask what page number it is, I can point it out to you. And as Jill just noted, it's page 117 out of 268. So we did not get budget books printed this year. We found that it was kind of a waste of resources Each year on cleanup day, I ended up throwing piles of these books away. So we try to make better use of the resources this year, and I think sometimes it's easier to read electronically.
So it's interesting with what the chief is showing are budget worksheets. So when Rob and I take and meet with the department heads, we ask them to take and create Excel sheets. And it's literally for each one of their lines, there is a backup that supports each one of the numbers going forward. So behind each one of these, budget lines, each department head has provided us with an Excel sheet that clearly details how they got to that number and why it is they need it again. So that's why the chief,
Yeah, and that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chief has a very thorough budget. And like Sabrina said, when we're not far off when we say we're estimating number of pens and number of reams of paper, that goes into a lot of these calculations, specific toner cartridges and those types of things. We don't have a lot of fluff within each of the budget lines.
Right. So you can feel free to ask any of the department heads about any of the specific lines because they have all the backup documentation to be able to show you. Chief?
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great. So the first one is our salaries, which was strictly contractual. Next year is the 5th year of a 5-year agreement. So, and that's the number for 37 officers.
And I'll point out, as Chief just said, the police are still in contract next year. So you will not see a large variance in some of the the personnel budget lines throughout the other staff. The police are continuing on with through their steps and also their cost of living through 2022.
Second one is an educational credit. It's for college credits that are earned throughout your police career. If you go to the sergeant school, you get a certain amount, and that depends on the payment there. But contractual as well. Overtime, we've kept that number pretty consistent. Last year we were light with COVID. This year has been, a little higher because of COVID. We had officers getting sick out and had to fill with overtime. But that number is pretty solid.
But Chief, let me also point out with that overtime too, what's included in that. And what was kind of a change this year from past years is we've now begun billing the utilities for traffic control when they're out. So for example, on Campfire Road, for a good deal of the summer where you saw the the pole replacement on there, we had officers out there and we were reimbursed by Con Edison for that. So while the overtime is a big number, you'll see a corresponding revenue line that is significantly over budget this year, while his overtime line is very close to budget. And if it's over, it's only over a little bit. And that is definitely because of all the utility work. So we are getting reimbursed for the lion's share of that. Well, all of the utility work, definitely.
Chief, is it fair or not unfair to say if I hired X officer and his or her salary is making it up, ultimately comes to be $100,000 and we had $100,000 in overtime, that marriage isn't perfect. You can't say you'll wipe out all that overtime. So where is it that you find an extra person would be significant in decreasing your overtime?
Right now we're at a difficult spot. I'm down 6 officers at the current moment. I have one that's out on 207C. I have one out on disciplinary issue. I have one out on military leave. And then I have 3 officers I'm in a process of replacing. So that's kind of added to my cost. Yeah, you can't correlate. We normally can run fairly well with when we're at full staffing. But when we are down.
How short are you now from full staffing?
I'm down 6.
You'd want to be, but is that 6? Would that bring you to full staffing or not really? You're looking for more officers.
Oh no, I'm satisfied with the staff. I mean, listen, I would always like to have more, but we can make do with what we have at the moment. And I think if Rob said, I mean, we've actually, paid out about $95,000 on the overtime that we're getting reimbursed, and collected over 200 on it. So it really is a revenue line for us.
Yeah, because when we ask for reimbursement, we just don't request the hourly wage. We include the fringe benefits in that number too. So it's not exactly a 1-for-1. We're actually getting reimburse a little bit more than the overtime, the actual salary dollars that are going out.
Yeah, right. And if we're paying a guy at bottom pay, we're still charging a top paid officer. So there's money infringing there as well. Where we at? Holiday pay, again, that's contractual. The officer entitled to an additional 13 days pay, but they average usually work, and then another 6 they work. So some guys actually take it in time, but this is a pretty solid number because Rob has a history of who takes it in time, who takes it in money. Longevity, again, it's contractual. We break it up a little different. We're 5, 10, 15, 17 years. Office equipment, again, unanticipated replacement or repair. It's just, we find out that this is what it costs us every year. It's with things breaking down. And I always like to say that, you know, our year is the equivalent of probably 4 years because we're there 7 days a week, 24 hours, where, you know, town hall staff is there 5 days a week for 8 hours. Every year, because of that, we have to buy a dispatcher chair and then unanticipated replacements. So that, you know, a lot of these lines are staying pretty close. The communication line went up a little bit. We did transfer over radios. We did a three-year plan where we got all new radios, but you know, it's come a point where some of them are breaking down. They have to be fixed or sent out for repair, and I need additional radios to fill in the officers. And I also found out, you know, trying to make it as accurate as possible, the $1,000 for unanticipated repairs is that, you know, an antenna on a car goes, a mic on a car goes, you know, stuff like that. And this is just trying to be, you know, as accurate as I possibly can. Last year, the vehicles we were at, 2 vehicles for 96. Each of those cars went up a bit. I'm looking for 2 of them, but then highway department or the mechanics at the garage said that we need to replace our animal warden vehicle. The next time something breaks on it, then they're not going to repair it. So that's something we have to think about. Office supplies, tracks paper, that's our printers, and that's the computers inside the car, so you can issue summonses and accident reports on. And that's Holly.
She sounds different, Chief. Wait.
Yeah, that's Holly. Hudson's the other one. So this line, first aid equipment, it stayed about the same. I did add an unanticipated replacement and or supplies. It's kind of like my COVID money, you know, in case I need more masks or gloves. You know, we actually were pretty well staffed, but you know, I just want to make sure I have a little cushion there. Printing and publishing, we're running out of handwritten parking tickets, and I had to get them in next year. And it's usually every 3 or 4 years we have to add some. The department supplies, this is, you know, evidence, investigative funds, flashlights, lithium batteries, ammunition, tasers, taser training, you know, things that we go through and need to be replaced. Books and prescriptions, it's stuff we need. You know, we need the current year version of vehicle and traffic law, you know, the criminal handbooks. It's online, but some guys have a better time and like to actually look it up and sit down. And then I added in that line, why it went up a little to 2,600 was the journal news subscription for the town actually comes out of the police budget. So I just to show it more accurate, I added that in there. Conferences and travel, continuing education. We send the women, you know, send to women in law enforcement. We do a juvenile school. There's a chief conference. There's POS, which is our records management for time off and overtime. That kept it about the same. You know, this year again, I don't think we use much of it, but that's just, I'm hoping in the future we can start attending these things again.
Chief, are they virtual or they weren't held at all?
It depends. Some did and some didn't. You know, it was about a 50-50 pack. Again, dues, it's just, dues that everybody's professional organizations that we belong to. And again, right in the vicinity where it's been. Training and instruction, you know, again, it's been low, but I'm looking to get it back. And next year, again, I also want to do simulator training and de-escalation training for the guys. We did it a couple years ago, and we're hoping that that opens back up for us. But we still do a weekly training set through DMS. We do have some online stuff we did. We did another version of implicit bias online this year, just to keep a refresher going. Equipment maintenance and repair. So medical and psychological exams, you know, if we look at hire 3 officers next year, I don't think I never think you're gonna, but then we do. So we do have 3 officers that can go. Triad, I'm hoping, you know, we're gonna get rid of that soon, that they're helping us with.
Chief, can you just explain, you have every new officer undergo psychological?
Yes, we do. Yep. And a medical.
Yes.
And, you know, we have a little line for independent medical exams. We actually just sent an officer to that who's been out on 207C for a long time, or workman's comp for a long time. There was an increase in lease maintenance and contracts, and some of it's the way that companies are doing business. Nixle, which we use all the time, they just started the way they're charging. You know, and that's why I sent a little blurb out of people actually trying to get the online app. Power DMS went up a little bit, and you'll see a fairly decent increase in Fleetwood, the voice recorder. We had, as of last year, we had owned all the equipment for it, but then as it happens, the equipment's out of date. So now we're leasing it to buy it, and that's the increase in that line. Vehicle maintenance, that's the money we pay highway, right? And that's a pretty firm number year to year. Same thing for gasoline. Special projects we do every year with, you know, for Community Day. I have some Colin with the Cop I'm looking to do. We do have a little bit for a couple of child passenger seats, safety seats, so that's in there as well. Uniform purchases.
Wait, did you just say Cone with the Cops?
Yeah,
I love that.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So yeah, timing wise, it didn't work out so well just because everything was happening in October. But yeah, we're gonna arrange for the soft serve ice cream to come and do it by the playground in the back behind Town Hall.
That's great.
Uniform purchases, again, possibly 3 hires. That's what we find out it costs to replace one. I added a firearms instructor and a motorcycle officer because I just lost one of each. And then the bulletproof vest buyback, you know, next year is 5 replacements and 3 new hires, and we get reimbursed 50% of that. So it's not quite what it looks to be. Uniform allowance, again, that's a contractual issue. And you guys got to replace or can spend money every year to replace and upkeep their uniforms. And that goes into their 17th years on the job. I don't get that. The telephone hotline, that's a radio system or a phone system that each police department has the ability to talk to each other on.
My dad used to always use his uniform allowance to buy my mom's Christmas present.
We're not allowed to. Our finance department is too strict.
Yeah, sorry.
try-
we
try
make
running
them
that
come
through
with
AP.
receipts.
It's not happening.
That doesn't work here, yeah.
So my total proposed budget is $247,000 more than last year, but of that, $203,553 is all contractual. And the increases I have in the lines I talked about was $43,000. Any questions on the police budget?
Are there any, well, not direct on the budget just yet, but are there any grants that you know that are out there that we can look to, you know, to either upgrade your equipment or matching dollars to get other equipment that we don't have already?
Yeah, I mean, I look all the time. I think the next one we've been hoping for was body cameras.
That's been hoping for a while. But
Yeah, and it hasn't come out yet.
and that's more of a storage issue, correct?
There's both, right? Yeah, the storage issue, we're hoping the county is going to do something with that. But as for the cameras themselves, you know, there's been grants in the past that every officer can get one, or, you can have twice the amount you actually have on patrol. So I do keep an eye and do look for them, but not too much at this point. When we did the radios, that was certainly a bid, and there were some grants for that as well. So the civilian budget, this includes myself, the civilians, which is Dina and my office assistants, animal warden, and parking enforcement officer. They're two separate lines. Salaries are contractual. We just lost our animal warden, so we're canvassing for a new one. Overtime, they help out with parades or details with the kids on Friday afternoons in the village. And that norm has been the same for quite a long time. Longevity, there's only one employee now that's on longevity, so you see a little decrease there. And again, uniform and boots, we help them try to look professional. Part-time salaries. So I budgeted for us going back to normal next year, but this could easily be $64,000 less, depending on how we do it, our parking enforcement officers, between Jimmy Moore, these three lines here.
I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on the.
I'd like to see it higher. Only that would mean that we have more people parking in our parking lot and generating a heck of a lot more revenue on that side.
Yep. I drive through every day. We're not there yet, but maybe in the spring. The back lot is still empty, and front lot B is, I don't know, depends on the day. Could be half to 3/4 or less. Departmental supplies, that's actually in the animal warden line. She asked for some more equipment, leashes, crates, dog food, etc. And that contractual services is what we pay to the SPCA every year to be able to drop off stray dogs or animals we take in. Overall, this proposed budget is $16,335.50 less than last year. Any questions?
I'm all right for now.
I do have a long time, fleet replacement plan that I put together, and sometimes it has to be fluid, because, for example, what happened with the animal control vehicle, but this is probably kind of pushed out for the next 10 years.
And Chief, what do you build in for things like our most recent storms? I mean, how do those impact your budget? And
Overtime.
How do you try to pre-plan for them?
Overtime, and it's just that number's been solid for us for a while, but sure, if we had another bad winter and a couple bad hurricanes, it would be, the overtime is the biggest expense.
But otherwise, you've built that in to expect some sort of natural issue or natural disaster, which have hit us, a few times over the years. But
yeah,
you have that, you compensate for that.
And I break down every line for my overtime, whether it be sick time, town event, storm emergency, so I can keep an eye on it, what it is every year, and track it.
Anyone
Any
have
more questions for Chief?
I'll just ask one other question. For your training and instruction, is that, you said you bring on new people? Is that mostly in-house training and instruction, or is that farmed out?
That's usually farmed out. We also do in-house instruction every year. So we do first aid. It's one block. Another block is firearms training, and it's mandatory. There's mandatory 21 hours of minimum training as well. We do legal updates. This year we added procedural justice in. We also have to do sexual harassment and the workplace violence. So there's violence. So, and that's all in-house for the most part.
And that's all inclusive in this number?
Yes. But if there's a school where I get a new investigator, that's built in the number for the actual other budget, the main PD budget. So if you look here. Right here, annual supervisor training, detective training, managed supplies certification for our first aid training. We have to pay the American Heart for the CPR certification. We do some online webinars. We do weekly training with legal updates to DLG. Next year, again, I want to go back to the use of force and de-escalation. And then I keep a little room there in case something comes up during the year that I need.
I'm sorry to keep you on. Another question for you, Chief. With the Marijuana and Tax Act that's going to be coming out, or what it is, but when it actually really starts to be rolling forward, do you expect training, and would that be at our expense if you know, to now that there won't be, now that there isn't the marijuana 221, Article 221, it's been replaced by the cannabis, and the right to stop someone based on cannabis now, as opposed to what it used to be with marijuana. Are they providing training by the state? And if so, are we do we have to compensate if you know?
So I definitely anticipate there being additional training and coming out. We do most of our training in-house in service like that through the county. And with that, we actually provide officers to train at the academy. So we'll give somebody down there for firearms for a week. And by doing that, we get to use and have people attend the schools at the academy for free. So it's kind of a give and take between us and the county.
Chief, I have a quick question. You said that that in the past year you had added implicit bias training. Are you imagining that that's going to be recurring training, like an annual program?
Yeah, I do. This was an hour course online through DCJS and to DCJS for certification. But I just had my Chiefs Advisory Board, which came out of the old police reform. And one of the things they recommended was, building on that and doing it yearly. So I do anticipate it.
Yeah, I think that's that seems appropriate, right? When you're trying to identify your blind spots, you can't really sort that out in one session.
As for the PRRCC, their big recommendation for next year was mental health training and also training on learning disabled and doing additional training in those areas. So that'll be our big focus, along with firearms, first aid. We'll get implicit bias again next year, and a piece of procedural justice, I'm sure.
Terrific.
Chief,
Thank you.
what is the status of the county's sort of like intervention teams? Remember they were as part of the PRRCC, the county was supposed to create these intervention teams that were supposed to be centrally located and be accessible to us when we needed them. Understanding that although our officers could have training in mental illness and so they're a little bit more attuned, they were never going to be experts. So what is the status, if you know, of those intervention teams?
In the beginning of next year, they're supposed to have 5 of those teams regionally located, working 24/7, and they're hoping I'll up that to 8 teams by the end of next year.
Okay. And do you know where ours would be located?
I don't know they got far, but it would definitely be regional. So like, Northern Westchester, we'll have a team.
Okay. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, because the board might not be aware, is that when your officers go for training and then turn around and, they're in a train the trainer sort of thing, and then they come back and they teach the rest of the officers. Town Hall's been lucky enough to piggyback off a lot of that, so that we've ended up with some fabulous training for our staff. Certainly, thankfully we don't need it.
Yeah, we've done active shooter training. We've done stop the bleed training. So there's been some stuff we've been able to bring back.
Right. Even the
de-escalation.
De-escalation training, certainly not to the extent that the police have it, but a watered down version for town hall staff. And the staff has really, really enjoyed it. So much so that now that we've gone back to these, Zoom little, canned trainings, everybody's looking at me like, when do we get the police trainings back? They were really tremendously helpful, and the staff really appreciate them. So thank you. We'd love to see them come back again, COVID permitting.
Another question while you're on the hot seat, but it's an easy one. Well, maybe not. A couple years ago, when Chad was, sort of doing a lot of tickets, pardon me, I know that there was a lot of distracted driving enforcement. And we're certainly not doing it for dollars. It also had the benefit of generating dollars because there's tickets involved. How are we there now? Is there seen a change in the past year due to COVID? Is there an increase, decrease?
We're certainly down in enforcement after COVID, or during COVID. We went back to, for us, normal traffic enforcement back in the beginning of May. Because I have to tell you, I didn't want my officers walking up to cars, not knowing where they came from and potentially exposing them. They would always address egregious violations. They would always be in the area of the chronic complaints, but we definitely had a limited enforcement action.
Understood. So you expect that to come back up again? Not
Part of the problem with distracted driving too is we really weren't prepared to hold the classes again.
Right.
Now there is a line, and I guess maybe Rob, could you pull it out for me? I don't have that in front of me. That's the line, the $10,000 town board line.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So we do have a line that the town board has for printing and publishing and actually holding those classes. Along those lines, my traffic officer is one of the officers on leave who should be back early December. So that will help because his job is to go out there and address these issues.
Right. So you would envision I can't think of their names, Steve and JC?
Yeah.
Is that them? Who came and did who did the trainings? Which
I'd like to get it back to the point where we're doing that again. Yep. It's a diversion program which we run.
Right. And so we would expect to hold that again at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center as well and be able to, great.
Correct.
Great.
I'm waiting for Jeremy to raise his hand again.
Thank you.
Rob, do you want to show my line or?
Oh, I can share that if you stop sharing, I think I can share.
Thanks.
Yeah.
These weren't tough questions, Chief. Come on. This is not
This
cross-examination.
is nothing compared to police reform. Come on.
Yeah.
So these are the two lines here, and this was kind of an initiative with Rob Greenstein kind of
And Chief Ferry.
initiated this, and Chief Ferry and Chief Carroll's continuing this. And again, we have used these lines to pay for these presentations. And Chief, we've charged some other safety stuff too, haven't we? Was there speed counters or something we charged
The
in here?
signs, the traffic signs.
A few times you've let me dip into the budget to pull out speed signs,
Yep.
Slow down, you're going too fast. I actually this year, I bought a new radar recorder, which just gives us the ability to do accurate traffic studies. Our old equipment's old, but I like to have both. It just gives us a better way to look at more studies.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, if we have a couple minutes between Chief and Nick, maybe we can take and just go through the sort of items on the work session agenda that we didn't get a chance to go through.
We have to thank Chief before. Should we tell him he's okay? Ready to go?
I don't know, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Night,
All right,
thank
take care.
you.
The first thing I wanted to mention to the board is the authorization to award the engineering and construction inspection services for Tectonic. What we were able to do was to obtain from Tectonic Engineering a proposal for temporary emergency pedestrian bridge stabilization and engineering inspection. So it's a very long way of saying that we would like to engage Tectonic. We've gotten a proposal from them. It's $19,000. So with the contingency figure, $25,000 is what we're asking for them to take and draw up plans to help us stabilize the duck pond. It would be on a temporary basis. It'll take them about 2 weeks to take and actually draw up the engineering plans. They believe that our DPW can do this in-house in a series of brackets and some reinforcing stabilizers to allow us within a month to be able to open that bridge. That would allow, yeah, that would be just huge. And it would allow us basically 6 months to a year to be able to take and get proper construction drawings, go out to bid, and figure out the best time for us to be able to take and do site work, stabilize the slope, which is the major impact from the floodwaters.
Are we still
Put-
considering moving it, Jill? We're still.
we
wasn't that a
might,
conversation?
we would at least have a little bit of time to be able to take a look at that and take a look at alternatives. Also figure
Okay.
out if there's a way for us to put something temporarily in place, or perhaps the advantage of shifting the location would be that perhaps we could keep this one actually up and operating while we installed a new one somewhere else. But we just need time to be able to investigate that, and we have to be able to get this one up, even if it's on a temporary basis, understanding that these repairs are not going to be long-term by any stretch of the imagination, but they will be substantial enough to stabilize the bridge and allow pedestrians to cross it. And it certainly will be a heck of a lot safer than having people walk on that non-shoulder along 117 there, 120. So that's a real important authorization that we would love to get from the board later this evening. The second thing is with the EV chargers, the board has already approved our ability to purchase new electric chargers for our electric cars. They're going to be located in various parking lots throughout the train station. But where we are doing new installations, we are going to need some infrastructure. We are concerned about the supply chain being disrupted and not being able to get supplies as quickly as we have in the past. So it was suggested that instead of waiting, that we actually purchase the materials for the infrastructure improvements now. It's going to be subject to a reimbursement from Con Ed up to 90% of the upgrade, but we'd like to get it ahead of time, lay out the money, and then wait to get reimbursed from Con Ed. We want to be in a position that Dan is able to actually install the stuff and that we don't hold up installation of the EV chargers because we don't have the infrastructure in place. So this is a $10,000 expenditure that we had actually mentioned to the board when we asked for permission to do the new EV chargers. So that's the second request that I'm asking you for this evening.
Jill,
Yes.
one thing, because I've actually been reading about EV chargers recently, and I think there are some companies now where actually they're not impacted by those supply chains, and you can, with grants, you can get them for almost free.
Right. So for the EV chargers, yes, it's just that you need electrical infrastructure to place them where they haven't been before. It's not typical infrastructure that goes underground from whatever the wires are. This is that money. This is for the actual infrastructure, and Con Ed is actually has a pilot program that will take and pay up to 90% of that infrastructure. The problem is that we're afraid that by the time our EV chargers come in, they're going to be so inundated that they're not going to be, they won't have the supplies for us. They've told us that the supplies are in short supply, in tremendous demand, and we may not have it. So we're not paying a lot for the actual EV chargers. And council is still reviewing a proposal from Tesla to give us, I think, 8 free chargers in addition that will be able to take in place around. We just are, looking to dot the I's and cross the T's on that and making sure that we're getting the best deals. But yeah, there are some fabulous opportunities for the EV chargers.
Yeah. Okay.
Second. Sorry. So next one. Okay. We had talked about the Newcastle Baseball and Softball Association, the donation. We finally have the details on it. It is $15,250 of upgrades that are going to be used to regrade, reskin the Millwood Field. They will be putting down new clay, so the town will be paying for the clay. We'll be getting it off state contract. They will be doing all of the work to take and actually install it, regrade it, reskin it, and it should be the crowning achievement after we put all the lights on and everything else. That feels going to be spectacular. We're really excited. But the board actually has to accept the donation so that they can do the work. So that resolution is in your packet as well. The next is snow removal. We needed to go out to rebid our snow removal for the hamlet, for the sidewalks. Griffin Landscaping had been our prior vendor. We really like them. And as it turns out, they were the sole bidder. We posted it to BidNet. We actually had 138 matched vendors. 6 of them downloaded it. For whatever reason, he was the only one who responded. And unlike some other contracts, we actually got back some very modest increases over the past 2 years. And this allowed us to make some modifications in the amount of snowfall. We hadn't really included like trace amounts and things like that. And so Bart was able to actually tailor the contract to be a little bit more appropriate to what we found in the past as far as our snowfall goes. Of course, with any given year that can go out the window, but we're very pleased with them and we're very happy to be able to engage them again. And I think last but not least, there was a request for 2 dosing pumps for the Millwood Water Treatment Plant. With our use of the New Croton Aqueduct and that water source, it's taken a little bit more effort to take and bring the water up to the standards that we're used to. And so these pumping doses will allow us to deliver a more measured basis of additives that neutralize the taste of the water, taste and smell that we've been experiencing. It's $13,786. And Nick, is that with the estimated freight in there? There was a question because we didn't have exact freight numbers until they actually go to ship them.
Correct. The resolution has the estimated freight as separately, but we're not able to give a freight due to some of the exact cost, but they've given us an estimate. But so the resolution before the board tonight is the actual cost for the pumps themselves, but it's an estimated cost for shipping. And Rob and I reviewed that. Rob Deering, we reviewed it with Bart, and under the circumstances, that's the best price. The best clarity we're going to get, certainty on the item and an estimate on the shipping cost.
Okay,
and
great.
It's needed, so it is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all I've got. If anyone has any questions, I think there's also a set of minutes from October 5th. Okay, great. So I guess we can climb back on track. Nick, we're a little early, but that's okay. You want to?
Excellent. And Rob, I don't know if you want to provide any commentary here, but with respect to the legal budget for 2022, Keenan Bean is proposing to keep the retainer rates and the hourly rates charged for matters outside of litigation, as well as the hourly rates charged on land use matters, the same as it has been for the last couple of years. And if there are any questions about specific litigations, we would likely defer those to executive sessions.
Right.
If the board has any specific questions. But Rob, I'll turn it over to you, I guess, for a general overview.
Sure. So as Nick mentioned, they're leaving the retainer the same and the hourly rate the same. We typically have, 4 budget lines, legal disbursements, just for incidental expenses, but three main budget lines, and we break it up. The first one is the contractual services. That's the retainer. So you see that amount remains exactly the same. We did bump the litigation line up from 125 to 175,000. We feel like that's probably warranted this year. We have the potential for some Article 78s on the horizon. So we just felt that it was prudent. If you look at what we've spent year to date, it's 133,000. So we've already exceeded the budget in 2021. So we felt like it was a good idea to bump this line up to 175,000 for next year. I will point out that we also keep 150,000 each year in the contingency line. And typically in years past, we've used that to cover legal fees if they do exceed this litigation line. And there's one other budget. Let me just get this last line and then we can answer the question. This last one is non-retainer. So when we get billed by Keenan Bean, there's the bill is broken out into a couple components, and one is all matters that are contained under the retainer. And then there are other items that are charged separately on an hourly rate. For these, we have left the budget flat at 180,000 as it has been, as it was last year. And you see the prior 2 years, we were under budget in both instances. Sorry, Jeremy,
Nick,
did you have a
that was
question?
actually, no, I apologize. That was actually gonna be my question to Nick. If you could just briefly explain what's considered part of the retainer and what would be something that falls outside the retainer.
Certainly. So the land use review fees is an easy one. There's 2 hours on every application that is included within the retainer agreement. When an application goes beyond 2 hours, then as municipalities they charge those. They have an escrow fee set up, whether it's a traffic consultant, whether it's the legal fees to pay for that, and that's billed back to the applicant. We then, if there's a litigation, that is billed outside of the retainer agreement, and we generally review those with Joe beforehand so that we're on the same page as to what is within and what is outside of that agreement. What's inside the retainer agreement is our attendance at board meetings, responding to most FOIL requests. Sometimes if there's involved a complicated FOIL request, we'll have a discussion about whether that should be inside or outside the retainer. We have a review of contracts, personnel matters, counseling on basic interpretations of policies, answering questions from the department heads, attendance at town hall for department head meetings or via Zoom as it's been recently. And that's a general run of the mill, what we call your general counsel matters, whether it's a call from a department head asking for an interpretation of the town code, interacting with other governmental agencies, working with the county on an IMA agreement, and things of that nature.
So when you
And
say,
just-
for example,
Just to
Go ahead.
clarify, Nick, the stuff that are the billing that's incurred on behalf of applicants, planning board and or zoning board applicants that are reimbursed by those applicants through an escrow fee, those are not ever charged to this line. You don't see that in the operating budget because they're reimbursed. It's part of a reimbursable trust fund. So those don't get charged here. But I think other matters that would be non-retainer, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, are specific labor issues, whether it would be negotiating a contract or employee disciplinary actions.
Correct. The in rem matters, the tax cert matters, and litigation.
Yep.
I know that you said FOIL requests, Nick, are usually covered under the retainer. This year, that has not really been the case.
That's correct. There's been some rather long, complex ones that require going through tens of thousands of emails. The standard ones where it's reviewing the minutes or reviewing documents and providing it, if it's taking a couple of hours, we're going to cover those within the general counsel. But when it's taking, days and days of work of people having to review tens of thousands of emails, then that's been outside of a retainer.
Okay. Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Nick? Wow, that's a first, so we're not charged for this? Okay.
It's in a retainer, so I'm here as long as you want.
Oh, shoot, go ahead.
We'll keep him
I-
here.
Well,
can
thank you. We
provide
appreciate
funds all
working
night
with
long.
the town, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we want to move on to Christina and Town Clerk. Receiver.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Christina, what do you want to start with?
Can we start with the taxes? Is that okay? I think
You
it's
start with receiver?
page,
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
69.
yeah. Thank you. Oh, actually, yeah, there we go. And so mine should be probably the most straightforward budget this evening, certainly. I'll give you just a moment to look through it. Most of it's pretty straightforward. Most of our things kind of remain the same year to year. Items that change or usually happen because of the board's actions, like printing and publishing, things like that. That's a direct, has direct correlation to town board, local laws and things like that are published and that we have to publish. And I'm talking about the clerk's office. I'm lumping taxes and everything all together because we manage both those. But you could take a look if you have any questions. You can kind of see. And if it's okay, Rob, is it okay we move to the next page unless anyone has any questions? So this is the town clerk's line. There's a couple of things that have changed. We were able to, last year we hired a new employee. So she's going up a step. That would be in the salaries. That explains that. That first year there's a kind of a big jump because they're hired at a very low rate. Also, so that's most of that first increase. The overtime is it's actually, Lauren's been doing, the deputy clerk's been doing that, the meetings, and we're going to pay her overtime. Previously, we've paid other deputy clerks overtime, and we hadn't for a while, but we're really going to do that. It's taken a lot of time and it takes away from some of the other things I need her to do. Part-time help. It looks like it's up a lot, but if you look back pre-COVID, it's actually about a third of what it was. We had, during COVID, as most departments, we kind of, we just kept the minimum because we needed the part-timers to collect taxes and so forth. But then eventually, all of the part-timers were let go. We brought on a receptionist to screen for temperature, and she's still there keeping the logs of visitors, making sure people wear their masks. So that's what you're seeing at 65%. Printing and publishing again is just a
Christina,
function.
Can I just chime in a little bit on the personnel costs? Because you'll see some variances over the years. And if you go back and look at 2019, salaries were much lower and part-time was much higher. And what we did beginning last year is we actually kind of consolidated 2 part-time positions into a full-time position, which allowed us to reduce the part-time budget, and that's why there's an increase in the salary. So we felt like having 1 full-time person there, year-round was more beneficial to the department. I think we're finding out we agree with that. We felt it like it's going to be that way, and Irene's been great. So that's why those numbers change. And Christina is correct. We did not think we were going to have the receptionist last year or in 2021, and that's why we ended up, it was she's ended up working more hours than we had anticipated, and it's working out a lot better as she has been able to help, record the people coming into the building and kind of direct them and perform the receptionist function. So that's why we've upped that budget a little bit to take that into account.
And we also, she's available for various departments. She does, she helps court with stuffing envelopes for court dates. She helps us. So when she's not scanning people or receiving the mail, sorting the mail, things like that, she picks up tasks from the other departments as time permits. So she's busy all her time in the office.
I have to tell you, it's really an amenity to have a live person when you walk into town hall, just to direct people. I think the public really appreciates it.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of you have heard me say this before. We really try to strive in town hall to provide a really positive experience when our residents come in to interact with us, because generally speaking, it's very rare. So we say, the word that I use for my staff is concierge service. So they feel, like they're just, so valued, and that we just provide the best service we can, and we want them here, we like them here, and we want to help them any way they can. And part of that is having the human there. When they come in, they don't know where to go, or they need a notary, or just anything. They come in for, all kinds of various questions. So it's nice. I think they feel good when they come in to town hall.
Yeah.
except for the court appeal. Just kidding. Okay, so oh, sorry, Rob. So did I interrupt you, or should we just go to the next
Oh,
page?
well, I interrupted you, but I did want to point that out because anybody that was looking at that, if you looked over the last 3 years, you'd see, quite a big variance. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, she's been wonderful, and we actually even had a third part-timer. So she's just been very productive, and I think she's helped even with her interaction with the reports and financials. So it would save Rob some time because there's less errors in our reports.
It is saving you some time. You are
Less
correct.
hands in the pot. So there's yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just there's no mistakes, no money. It's just booking entries and things like that. Okay, so should we go to the next page if the board wishes? Okay. Okay.
So this is the town code.
Oh, yeah. So that again, that's kind of built in.
I would also like to remind the planning board that
it's breaking. You're breaking up. I can't hear.
I think that was just a glitch.
I think that was Carrie just checking in on us to make sure we're okay.
Yes.
We heard a little bit of
Okay.
the planning board, that's all.
Always good to hear from Carrie. Okay, so the elections is a contractual expense. That's from the county. They set that amount. Okay, so parking is kind of like a joint effort with the police and the town clerk. So this is, we purchase meter permit cards and things like that. And I think this also encompasses, and Rob knows better than me, the T2 and I think the subscription for the online parking application.
Yeah, so the contractual services are the software costs, the cost for the app, for the online permit system. Also, what goes into there, the credit card fees from when people do purchase online. Utilities is the electricity for the train station lot there, and the Luke machines, I think the Wi-Fi service for the Luke machines as well.
Yes, yes.
And then we would portion part of the liability insurance to the parking lot there.
Yes, thank you. And we're hopeful with parking. We have seen more activity, so we'll keep our fingers crossed in December. We do see more people coming in and purchasing and using the lot. So like I said, we're hopeful with that. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? All right, not a lot of sizzle in my my budget, but it's essential. So I thank you all for your support, and that's it. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
So does anyone have any questions for Christina or Lauren? Because otherwise, maybe what we'll do right now is, can we, Lauren, you had circulated the resolutions. So maybe we can take and just approve them. I'm sorry, we thought we'd do them all up front, but we ran a little late and that presentation ran a little bit longer.
Can we actually, I'm not sure that we put we didn't use the title consent agenda, but do we need to do individual
No,
resolutions?
we'll just do them old, do them old school, the way we,
Okay.
the way we used to, okay?
Can we hold off on the minutes? Because I haven't had a chance to fully review them. We don't usually put all of this in there, and I want to look at it.
Okay, sure.
All right, you guys want me to start?
Please, thank you, Lauren.
Sure. I move to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $1,322,103.47 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detailed voucher detail report, both dated October 15, 2021. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, October 20th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I move to adopt the following resolution, whereas the Recreation Department is seeking the town board's approval to enter into an agreement with Newcastle Baseball and Softball Association to accept the donation of services and costs to repair the Millwood Park ball field, and whereas NCBSA has selected Marone Landscaping, Inc. to perform the work set forth in the scope of work attached hereto as Exhibit A And whereas the town shall purchase and deliver clay to the fields at Getney Park, and whereas Marone will handle all the work regarding putting the clay down after it is delivered and will coordinate with the town of Newcastle regarding sprinklers and other facilities-based matters during the time of the project. And now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Newcastle hereby authorizes the acceptance of the donation of services from the Newcastle Baseball and Softball Association. And be it further resolved that the town board of the town of Newcastle hereby authorizes the execution of an agreement with Newcastle Baseball and Softball Association for services described in the scope of work. And be it further resolved that the agreement shall be subject to review, approval by the town administrator, superintendent of recreation and parks, and the town attorney as to form and substance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And thank you to the Newcastle Baseball and Softball Association. I move to accept the proposal for professional services for the temporary emergency pedestrian bridge stabilization from Tectonic Engineering for the total amount of $19,200 as per the estimate dated October 13, 2021.
I'm
Second.
sorry, like Lauren, I think Bob Seoli's memo asked you for a $5,000
Yeah, so it's
contingency.
24,200.
Yeah, so I think he wanted it to be, yeah, he said 2,400, but it was
I wrote
19.
down 25,000 from the conversation.
Yeah, I would put 20, yeah, 24. I think 24 is actually what he put in his memo.
Yeah.
But can we amend it to be the 24? I know that there's contingency in there. And engineering inspections.
Okay, should I just say as stated? Is that sufficient, Nick? As stated by our town administrator, Joe Shapiro.
Sorry, trying to find the mute button. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lori?
Sure. I move to award the contract DPW 2021-11 sidewalk snow removal for the Chappaqua Hamlet Parking District to Griffin's Landscaping, 1234 Lincoln Terrace, Peekskill, New York, at the following pricing based on snowfall increments as shown in the table. Yeah.
Good.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the purchase of 2 chemical feed pumps with drives for the Millwood Water Treatment Plant from GP Yeager, Inc., PO Box 50, Boonton, New York, for the total equipment cost of $13,186, plus the estimated shipping costs, approximately $600, as per the proposal number 19976, dated October 14th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I move to authorize the hiring of Nicholas Brodigan for the position of laborer within the Department of Public Works Water Unit at the annual salary of $48,055.31, Group 2, Step 1, effective November 8th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Lisa?
I move to authorize the change in pay rate for the following individuals at the rates as listed below, effective October 20th, 21. Marcia McCross, $16 an hour. Cynthia Strauss, $15 an hour. Diana Volkenberg, $15 an hour. And Teresa Ann Ferland, $15 an hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is because minimum wage is going up, so we
Mhm.
Jill, on this next one, are we not interviewing people anymore?
I think some of them are straightforward, and in light of the fact that the Holocaust Committee chair people support this person, I think it's sufficient. But certainly if you don't want to vote on them, that's fine. And I'm
No,
not
I
saying,
don't necessarily, I
No,
don't
no,
have
no,
a
no.
problem with her, but I know we usually interview people.
Yeah,
well,
meet and greet, but would you like to, we'll set it up for an executive for her to come in and.
I just feel like it's
say hi.
nice to meet the people before they join the committees.
Okay.
Not that I have
Alright.
any issue, but
No, I understood. And I have to tell you that prior boards have, sort of split as to whether or not they meet and greet or not, but there's something nice about recognizing
yeah,
somebody who's been appointed to a committee when you've never known them.
I agree.
So that's fine. I will, we'll do an executive session and get them on board. Okay?
Yeah, thanks. And the next one, are we waiting until they give us more information? We're doing this
Yeah, we'll
next
put it on
week.
for the 20, yeah, we'll put it on for the 26th.
Yep.
Okay? All right, and we'll do the executive session that day as well. Okay?
Good.
All righty. I
Well,
still
if-
think that we are early, so Rob, do you want to take, why don't we do us?
Yeah.
Okay, and then hopefully by then the judges will be here and that'll conclude tonight, which will be a interesting change. Okay, here comes high finance. Come on, Rob.
I had to unmute myself and I couldn't figure out how to do it when I was sharing the screen.
Did we bore you, Rob? You ready to go?
So these budget lines, maybe. There we go. Okay, so we're going to show the town board, the town supervisor, administrator, controller, kind of the administrative budget lines. Not a heck of a lot has changed through most of these budget lines. I'll point out some of the town board lines. The boards and commissions, that amount rolls over to $15,000. We in prior years we had 10,000 in boards and commissions, 5,000 for the Arts and Culture Committee. We just rolled it all into one. We saw in years past that it didn't necessarily get spent out of any one particular line, so we kind of rolled it into the boards and commissions, and that's where we don't kind of advertise carte blanche that the boards and commissions can just go and spend this money, but that's if the town board has a specific project that they want to back, like the Holocaust Committee. I think they sponsored an essay contest, for example, and the prizes came out of this line. Those types of things are coming out of this boards and commissions line. I had a talk with Lori the other day, and you know, she kind of noted that we didn't have a specific budget line expressly for the CRE. And I said that any projects at this point in time could come out of the boards and commissions line unless the board wanted to earmark a specific amount of money either from this line or an additional amount that we've not yet included. You know, they're certainly at liberty to do so.
That was certainly something that I was hoping we might be able to include as a separate carve out for CRE programming.
I actually don't think we should carve it out. I think it gives them more flexibility that if they need to spend a little more, they can even do that as opposed to having it specifically there.
Right, but there's no additional budget to account for the CRE. So whether it gets included in the boards and commissions budget or as a separate carve out for the CRE, you know, them starting with an understanding of what their resources are, I think would be very helpful.
Rob, we only show 2019 and 2020. But if you take a look at the budget lines that were expended out of that collective boards and commissions, they didn't even, you know, break $5,000. And I mean, I appreciate the fact that, you know, these aren't the years that we should be using as examples, but traditionally there has been a fair amount of money in that line. And
also point out that
special, yeah, I'm sorry.
Special projects could also be used for that.
Exactly right.
And or special events. If there was an event that the town board wanted to support.
Rob,
You know.
can you remind me what it was historically for the special events line? Was that like the Epic concert?
So that it was
Okay.
in the past, it was the Epic concert. And so why that number has gone from 31,000 down to 20,000. I don't know why, but this is where we placed the other year when we decided to do the children's programming that we kind of jointly sponsored with the library. We had that money budgeted in this line. Ike included it on his side of the budget, so I removed it from this line. I didn't want to duplicate both, so that's why it looks like that amount has gone down. Special events in the past, this has also been our volunteer recognition dinner. We haven't done that the last couple of years, unfortunately, due to COVID.
Maybe next year we'll try to do it again.
So those are some of the things that have been charged to that line in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think there's a perception difference between, giving an organization a budget for their programming and kind of having them need to approach the town piecemeal for programming they want to conduct or everything they want to do.
Lori, I think, this is, we're still a little, in the COVID age, and I'm hoping that next year, this time, this is going to be just a bad, distant memory. But I would suggest that going forward, a proposal for programming with the costs associated with it, which is what we did with the children's programming when we took and folded it in, would be would probably be the right path to go, in the future. So if they give us a proposal that says this is what we'd like to do going forward, we certainly should be able to cover anything that they want to do next year. But for 2023, to be able to, give us a, this is the litany of programs that we want to, set forward. This is the, this is the budget for each one of them. I think that would give the board an opportunity to take and, give it the good housekeeping seal of approval, and it has the town's full support, and they will never need to feel like, they have to come hat in hand for, monies to be able to, to do things. But
Yeah,
I understand the concern, and I appreciate the impression.
yeah, I'm afraid of them having to
Never
start
wanna
out
give-
that way.
Yeah, but I have to tell you that the board has never said no to any request for funding. It's just,
I believe the principle here is we want to encourage them to have an engaging type of opportunities for the public, and
Right.
they think that are important. So they should have an understanding of where we will be in terms of dollars. But I think you both make valid points. We don't have to decide this here today, right now. But being able to see what you can and you can't do in terms of dollars, and when you have to come back, that's helpful. But it's also hard to identify, well, what should that number be now if we don't know what that planning is going to be in the future. So it's a mix, but I'm certainly open to it, and I think the concept is correct, because this is something we spent so much human capital on. Forget dollars, human capital. I mean, we involved so many people, and it really had some terrific ideas. I think they should know, those people, however 100+ people got involved, they should know that your time wasn't just to have these meetings and discussions, then see nothing. These are the dollars to back up what you said. So I think there is some value in that. So I think we can continue this conversation. It doesn't have to be resolved today. So I think it's an important one, to Lori's point. But again, it doesn't have to resolve. It doesn't have to be resolved right now. We can continue to discuss it.
Sure. Okay. Next couple lines, NCCMC, this is the annual appropriation. You will hear a presentation tomorrow from Carrie and Lyle about their budget going forward. I think I mentioned in one of it might have been an executive session or something the other week, that they have some increases. It won't affect this line. It will affect the IT services, the contractual line throughout the various funds, to increase their services, and they're looking to add additional staff to NCCMC. The last line here, the Chappaqua Chamber Orchestra. Last couple of years, we have not held the events, and I think that going forward, this was for, in the past 2 concerts. One was a holiday concert, and another was it was at the part of the summer concert series. I think that we're not going to continue those at this point. I don't know why in the past we had a specific Chappaqua Chamber Orchestra budget, and Ike has a budget for his summer concerts within his recreational budget. So again, we've removed the money from this line and kind of more accurately placed it in with the recreation budget.
So you've just moved the dollars?
He's got money there. We didn't specifically move that because I don't believe that we're engaging Chappaqua Orchestra or Orchestra 914, I think, as they're now known. As far as I know, I know they didn't perform this summer. I think there was also a difference over the fee. They had originally quoted us that it was going to be about $3,500 of performance, and that's why we had 7,000 in that budget line. And I think they were looking for a significant amount more.
We were looking to get some dollars. It was about a month ago, Jill, we discussed this.
For the
So-
epic
As far as
concert that
Epic.
they do.
Epic,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, and that
So
can be
where's
included.
that coming out of, like special projects or?
Special projects or special
That's-
events, yes.
that's-
Got
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
There's definitely monies for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, next page. This is the kind of the BAB line here. Community beautification supplies at $25,000. You know, we've had that steady for the last, I guess about 8 years since we increased that from a kind of a paltry $500 up to $25,000. And then landscape area maintenance, that's lumped in. That's not the BAB's line. It just kind of part of the downtown beautification, and that's probably for any supplies that need to be purchased for that area.
But the
Hey,
25
ask Robin,
covers. I'm sorry.
2019, why was it 33,000? What was the difference there?
Is that streetscape stuff?
No, I don't think it was streetscape stuff. I can go back and check. I know that might have been the first year that we did the lights. I
Yeah, they were more
think,
expensive.
They were real
I don't know
expensive.
why.
yeah, they
Mm.
were
They
more
were very-
expensive. I think we had also charged some other stuff there. We hadn't. So typically what that had gone for primarily was the hanging baskets at first, and then some other ancillary stuff. And I think we had probably spent the majority of that budget. And then when they got to the end of the year and we decided to do to contract the lights the way that we had, I think that's when that line kind of went over that way. So I think we had a better handle on that last year.
Yeah,
That also the year that we wrapped the extra trees that couldn't be lit at the top.
Yeah,
left.
I think so.
Wasn't that when we decided to replace all the light bulbs with LEDs on a lot of the lights that we had that were stringing around the trees and things like that?
you know what, Lisa, we did replace them,
Like
but
the
I really
pool.
thought it was years before that. I mean, it was a
can't
while
remember.
ago.
Yeah,
It was, yeah, because we had warm white ones, and then yeah,
right.
because this predates Lori. This is like years and years ago, and they literally changed them all to the stark white LEDs. Yeah, I don't think that's it. There was something funky about that year, but I can't remember what
I
it
think
was.
that the great warm versus cool white debate may be over.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But yeah, the other thing is that because we have settled into this vendor, the fact that they give us a significant discount as well when we're able to pay them a little bit earlier has really helped. In addition, that, and we're slowly but surely we're getting the hanging baskets and the, you know, and the huge pots down as well. So that's been great.
Let's see, the last line that falls under the town board's tab is the contingency account. As you see, we typically budget that at 150,000. Why you see an actual amount of 0 for each year is because it's not, we don't actually charge anything to the contingency account. What we do is we transfer out the funds into other budget lines that are overexpended. And I gave the example where legal fees is one that in the past has been overexpended. There are also other years where we are under budget and we don't need the contingency account at all, and the money just kind of rolls into fund balance if that were to be the case. So we typically budget 150. We've included some additional funds for the potential settlement of union contracts and salary increases. So that's where those funds are at this point.
Yeah. And just so the board's aware, you get a detailed resolution at some point in 2022, early on.
Yep.
First quarter, where Rob will specify where the contingency lines
Are allocated, yes.
are allocated with
Yep.
specific numbers, and the board will approve that. These are not monies that we're allowed to, you know, to shift around without board approval.
Right, that's correct. So there are, in December, you will grant me the authority to make budget transfers to balance the budget. And those are all lines except for the contingency account. And those are typically within funds. That might be, for example, I got a budget transfer today. Bart doesn't think they're using all the money in the salt line, so he has transferred some of that to an equipment line to purchase equipment. That's what you give me the authorization to do. The contingency account is different. That's if we overexpend an account due to, it could be an emergency or another reason, and I will specifically ask the board authorization to transfer these funds to the different accounts. So you will see that typically probably in February, as I'm looking to close out the year prior to my audit. That's when I give the board that resolution. Going to jump to the town supervisor's budget. Not a lot here. The town historian is here and the Memorial Day parade are here. Other than that, there's just some dues in there, office supplies, etc.
Modest amounts.
While we're waiting for the judges, a particular reason why under this line, and I don't recall the answer if you ever did before, why the Memorial Day parade and the historian go under this line?
Nope.
No, always been.
There are a lot of things that maybe I would do different if I was setting up my own accounting system. I mean, it's not necessarily wrong, but it may not be the right spot for it. But if I don't typically like to change too many budget lines around, because then I lose the history of it. And then you don't get to see. So if I change that extension and put it under somebody else's budget, the administrators, for example, then I would lose the history in that particular budget line. I wouldn't see it. So just to kind of follow what has been done in the past.
We can't lose the history of the town historian.
The town administrator line, again, not a lot here other than some office supplies, conferences and travel dues, meal allowance, those types of things, not any significant changes there.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, we actually didn't include money for internships this year. We put it out for last year and nobody was interested. We did not have a big groundswell.
I think the police usually have interns, and Sabrina's office has had lots.
Sabrina always, and recreation has done really well with interns.
Yep. Some of the other upstairs, the town hall departments haven't had as much luck, unfortunately.
Yeah, the town clerk's office used to do really well with them especially during parking permit season. They were tremendously helpful. But we don't do it over the summer anymore, so that's not going to work quite as well. It's fine.
The comptroller's budget, not a whole lot changes. Get a couple $1,000 increase on the maintenance and repair. That's where I pay for my accounting software. The support services have increased over the last year, as has happened in a lot of departments. So that's reflected there.
Rob, where's the IT line paid out of?
Yep, I'm gonna go to those.
Okay.
The audit, not much is changing there. This is central services, and these are central services, kind of where these are not doled out on an individual department basis because it would be difficult to do so. These are cellular phone charges, telephone, Wi-Fi throughout the town, office supplies, the postage machine. Minimal increases here. This is our Newcastle United for Youth line. This mirrors a revenue line for $125,000. That's the total amount of the grant. We may or may not spend it all in each year, but the expenses will match the revenue. I just kind of apportion it. It doesn't have to be exact. Again, that's the amount of the grant is 125. So I just kind of allocated some funds into each of those budget lines. And let me go to the IT. I think I can hit that real quick before we get to the judges. Okay, these are the IT costs for the town. What's included in the contractual services, that's the big expenditure here. And what is charged here is logically for our IT support services and also some of the ancillary services that NCCMC are providing over and above, providing the TV station. That would be their web support services, their support on the Zoom meetings. As I mentioned, Lyle and Carrie will be here tomorrow. Those costs are apportioned out through all four of the major funds. So while you see an increase here of about 33,000, the overall increase is spread out across the other three funds as well. So we have increased this line based on NCCMC needing an additional staff member, and we do anticipate logically the support costs to increase. We are out of contract after March 31st of next year. They've told us to expect about a 30% increase, or well, they say 20 to 30%. Obviously, that'll be subject to negotiation, and we're debating whether that will be, we may issue that as an RFP. We're not certain at this point.
Hi, all.
Hey, Dolly.
Judge Kraus is here, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to him.
Okay, why don't we give us 2 seconds?
Okay.
Actually, give me 30 seconds. Hold on. I got my dog scratching at my door. I gotta just put it downstairs.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. Oh, okay. They're not gonna. All right, great.
I thought I was turning the meeting over to you.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Hello, Judge
Hi,
Kraus.
Judge.
And that's
Hello,
Jeremy's
Judge. Welcome.
I
don't like not seeing the judge's mouth.
want to figure out how to make this a little louder.
Is Di there with you?
Hang on a second, Di. How do I make this louder? There's got to be a volume here. So, oh, maybe it's down there. Yep. Okay. Just
Not
turn
much
it.
loud.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, thanks. Sorry.
All right. Rob, do you want to bring up his line? Or is he going to, Judge, are you going to bring it up, or is Rob going to bring up your?
I've got it coming.
Okay. Well, not much has changed here. And I guess I'm happy to explain any changes.
Looks like the only change you have is really an overtime.
Yeah, and that is really just, we're finding that with the with the limited capacity in the courtroom, court stretches out over a longer time frame, and we also are working through the backlog on the vehicle and traffic matters. So the combination of more cases and not being able to have as many people in the building or the courtroom means that we're here for longer, more hours. And I think we've actually been running at a rate that's about 40,000 if you annualize it, and it or close to it. And so our number for this year was 32.5. So that's why we're proposing an increase.
So you think as long as it stays this way in terms of COVID, you'll need it, and hopefully if it gets back to quote unquote normal, that will dissipate.
Yeah, I mean, eventually it'll come back down, hopefully.
Right, right. Okay, understood. Any questions for the judge? No
You
questions.
can't
Rob.
ask much more of him when it comes to
Actually,
holding salary, holding everything
Yeah.
down.
So I have a question. When we talk about money from federal government for expenses due to COVID, is this a line that we could include in that reimbursement?
Wait, I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty hearing.
Sorry, it was more a question for Rob and Jill.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a line item, when we have talked in the past about reimbursements, the town would be eligible for expenses due to COVID. Is this something that could be included in that?
So it hasn't been, to my knowledge. The FEMA reimbursements for COVID had been, according to Mike, a lot more strictly monitored, or what they were allowing reimbursement for was a lot less than we've seen for storms. So a lot of it were costs that we had to incur, like the plexiglass that we had to put up on short notice, kind of structural things like that, things that we actually had to change. I don't think it was for any of the salaries or overtime or anything like that. And I would say, I mean, if you look, the judge is correct. If you look back to 2019, we did actually spend 37,000 there. So, we spent less in 2020. We didn't run court for several months altogether, and then in a reduced schedule. And then we brought that budget to 32.5 last year, or, for this year, probably not enough. So 40 is probably accurate. We may see a difference going forward, but I don't think that's anything that's reimbursable as part of COVID.
Okay, thanks.
We've got no questions for you, Judge, for this. You shared so.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I think we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. We so appreciate you coming in.
Okay, no problem. Nice to see everybody.
Nice to see
you.
you too. Bye,
Do I-
Di. Thank you.
You're
All
welcome,
right,
Jill.
Guy's gonna take care of turning us off.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Take care. Be well.
You too.
You
You
too.
too.
So Jill, we're kind of done for the night, which is not a terrible thing, but if the board doesn't mind taking a minute, I'll just review some of the revenue sources and where I project those over next year, because it's not something that usually falls under one individual department, especially in the general fund. They're all kind of lumped together. So if the board wants to take a few minutes, I can just go over some of those, because there's quite a few changes. Some are COVID related, some are not, but there are changes in that.
Please do.
Okay, so looking through some of these lines, the property tax, interest and penalties, that is actually a pretty significant jump from 400 to 450. If you look at the past couple years, we're about right in between that number. 2019 was 433, 2020 is about 486. We do have a decent amount of outstanding liens, and that's typically where we're getting our property tax, interest and penalties. We We hope we're going to have some progress on one of the large ones coming up, and we could see the revenue from that in
Is it the largest or a
2020.
large one? Is it the largest?
It's the largest. Yep. Yep, by far. Going down to the county sales tax. So if you looked over the last couple of years, it was about 2 years ago where the county instituted the 1% increase in the sales tax. And they actually instituted that, I think it was like on beginning of September. So it was really just for the last 4 months of the year. So you didn't see the full impact of that in 2019. We were a little hesitant to bring the budget up much last year due to COVID. So if you look here in 2020, we ended up realizing $3.6 million, but obviously the second and third quarter with COVID, that number was greatly reduced. We didn't have a great idea of where that was going to go this year. And if you remember at budget time last year, we were worried about another shutdown. So we left that number fairly conservative at about 3.3 million for this year. This is paid out on a quarterly basis. We've received 2 payments so far, and we're at 2.2 million so far. So we feel pretty comfortable raising that number to about $4 million next year, which is a $700,000 increase from where the budget was this year. I think that is a safe and probably still conservative estimate for that budget line. If you based it on where we were this year, it would be, you could go straight across the board. If two quarterly payments at 1.1 million each, you could have made that 4.4 million. I'm not comfortable doing that. I could see the economy slowing a bit, and I'm more comfortable leaving that at 4 million. But I think we'll reach that number certainly. Let's see, scrolling down. The commuter parking fees, if you go all the way back to 2019, you can see where that was pre-COVID, 928,000. We typically budgeted about 950 for that. Some years we were a little over, some years a little under. Last year, you see, we actually realized $87,000. We missed the mark by quite a bit. This year we've got 500,000 budgeted. That remains to be seen whether we'll reach that number. We've got December, I guess December 15th is the renewal date. I think they're starting a month early. I think it's November 14th or 15th to begin the renewals, and we hope to see that money this year. We budgeted a slight increase next year. It's still about 2/3 of what we would have pre-COVID, but we're hoping in 14 or 15 months from now that we see traffic return to normal at the train station parking lot. There's a group of budget lines here in the middle. These are most of our recreational programs. For the most part, we've left the budget pretty consistent with prior year. One of the increases is the Art Center. Ike believes that he's going to increase the amount of programming there. And so we budgeted a slight increase. Camps, we were definitely off on that number this year. He's going to hold it steady next year. We're hoping it gets back to normal. One of the big drivers in the camp revenue is the on-the-go camp. That's one of the more expensive camps because, it costs more because our costs are higher on it, but it's one that we haven't been able to run the last 2 years. So that's why you see a big difference, but we believe we'll be able to run it next year. If for some reason we're not able to, the expenditure side would be decreased somewhat as well. If you're looking here at police protection, about the 4th line down, this is where we spoke of with the chief and the reimbursement for the overtime. And if you look, we had that number budgeted about 155,000. And that was pretty close to what we received from the school district for reimbursement for our school resource officer. We added a few extra thousand because the police get called to details that we get reimbursed for. If you look at the number where it sits currently this year, it's 348,000. In that we spoke of the increase due to the utilities reimbursing us for our traffic details. So we feel pretty comfortable moving that number to 250 next year. I don't want to go much higher than that because we don't really have a track record. I'm not sure how much work Con Ed will be doing in town next year. They were the big driver of that this year. Also, some of the filming crews that go out if they need to hire an officer for traffic control. So I'm comfortable moving that to about 250.
The only thing is, Rob, and the reason why I was, comfortable with your decision here is that after Con Ed, all the other utilities have to follow suit. So
Yep.
Con Ed has installed the new pole. They've changed their equipment from one pole to the next. As Jeremy knows, that means that we've got double poles until the other utilities take and remove all of their equipment from the old poles and put it on the new. So that process is first ongoing now because Con Ed is just in the midst of finishing installing new poles. They actually came back and redid, actually they're doing it this week, additional tree work so that they can install new poles and change their equipment. So I think they're going to be here for a bit, fortunately or unfortunately.
Yep, that's correct. One other, probably not a positive number, I'll just highlight it a bit. The interest earnings, if you look back from 2019, where we had $215,000 and you see where it's dropped to, we're about $12,000 right now. I budgeted 25 next year, thinking the interest rate will tick up a little bit. That's obviously nothing we have any control over, but that's a huge decrease for us. Building permits, that over the last couple of years, we've been pretty consistent. 2019, we had 912,000. 2020, we're at 900,000. We budgeted consistently 900,000 this year. We're already at 844. I actually think we're over that. I think there's some permits that haven't been, that weren't received in my system before I printed this book. So I think we're at that 900,000 mark and we still have a couple months to go. I feel comfortable increasing that to 950 next year. We have the East Village coming online and there will be building permits associated with that project. So I think that will be a budget line that'll be fairly consistent over the next couple of years. Kind of going along with the chief, and Jeremy asked this question from an enforcement standpoint, but the flip side of that is it's a revenue standpoint. You see that our fines and forfeited bail, that line where we receive our revenue from our vehicle and traffic citations, that's significantly down from the past few years. I think there's kind of a backlog. There were many months where there were no citations issued, and as they're now filtering back through the system, we think we'll be somewhat back to normal. But in prior years, we budgeted at 300,000, so we're still going to, be reasonably conservative and do about 2/3 of that. And probably the last budget revenue line of note that I just want to point out, the appropriated fund balance. If we remember last year, we typically were appropriating probably between $400,000 and $600,000 a year, based on a schedule I had previously laid out once we began the work for the infrastructure project downtown. Last year was kind of decision that we were trying to hold the highway and the general fund levy flat. And in order to do so, we had to kind of make up some of this lost revenue that we were anticipating, in particular from the parking permits. Between the parking permits and the meter funds, it was about $1.2 million in revenue. We were going to appropriate $500,000 in fund balance. We ended up shifting that $700,000 that we lost from the parking lot and took that from fund balance. We have lowered that number in 2022 back down to 600,000. Again, that's pretty consistent with the fund balance schedule that I had laid out, and we have spoken about in the last few years. I'll just bring up a chart real quick. Okay, so that's kind of a chart of where the fund balance has gone over the last several years. The really important one is the kind of purple line. That's the general fund unassigned fund balance. And, you know, we had laid out a schedule to draw that down. We're still in great shape looking forward. This is kind of where that has been. And this is where we see it going through 2023. And if you look even now, the projection is still above $6 million. And that's in the 30% range for our budget as compared to our appropriations. So still, you know, very much where the state controller's office, our auditors, everybody would like us to be above that 15% line, in particular in the general fund. And even with this appropriation, we look to stay there. So I guess that's about all I wanted to point out. I did just want to have an opportunity to talk about the revenue that we're projecting for 2022.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's all I've got. I'm gonna set up a executive session on the 26th to do a meet and greet and see what else there is floating around. I may ask you for an executive session after the meeting tomorrow morning, real quickly. But that's really, you know, about it for me. Does the board have any other questions or anything else for Rob? Or
So tomorrow, Jill, we're meeting at 8 on Zoom, and then we
Right.
have our 6:30 work session at Chat Pack, right?
yes, that's how we're scheduled right now. And we're actually going to start out with a presentation on the stretch code. And then we'll go into our form-based code discussions.
Okay.
All right.
And has there been a
Yeah.
time set for next Tuesday's meeting? I know Lisa had.
No, so we had a chance to speak it earlier, so we're going to try to set that for 6:30.
Next Tuesday? Okay.
Yeah. I will not be joining you guys. Rob will hold down the fort. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell you tomorrow.
Is that all the meetings for next week? Just that 6:30 meeting on Tuesday night? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be difficult. I just want
No,
to.
I'm laughing because
I'm so embarrassed that I arrived late tonight. I really never do.
No, don't give it a thought. And you know what, you had asked me earlier, and I just should have reminded you of the time. Yeah, at this point, that's all I see on the calendar. But we are having 3 meetings in the next 36 hours. So I can understand your question. But yeah, that's all I have right now. It's for the 26th. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, if that's it, we
Thank you so
just,
much, Rob.
Jeremy, anything else you want to raise with the
All right,
board? Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Hi. Have a good night,
Bye.
guys.